faith, believe in your source, have faith.
Welcome to Artists, Icons, and Entrepreneurs, the podcast that dives deep into the stories of trailblazers who shape our world. Our co-host, Lulu Benavidez, is a seasoned entrepreneur in the beauty industry, is a photographer, artist, and the proud owner of Lulu's The Salon in Galveston, Texas. Our other co-host, Krokonis Hanson, is a visionary in the entrepreneurial world with years of experience in business innovation and development. Together, they bring you insights, inspiration, and the journeys of remarkable individuals who have made their mark. And with that, let's get started. Ivette Mayo is an award-winning entrepreneur, international speaker, author, and globally recognized career coach. She is the founder and CEO of Yo Soy I Am LLC, a professional development and consulting firm she launched in 2004. Ivette is passionate about helping others reshape their belief systems and take bold action to achieve their most powerful goals. With over 27 years of global experience in the airline industry across business development, marketing, sales, and training, Ivette channeled her expertise into empowering others. She has created transformative programs that build strong business skills, culturally competent teams, impactful leaders, and thriving entrepreneurs. As a dynamic facilitator and trainer, Ivette has worked with top organizations including Shell, State Farm, NBC Universal, Comcast, and nationwide, and holds more than 15 professional training master certifications. In 2017, she became an international author with the release of her book, A 30-Day Guide to Your Power: Powerful Outcomes Through Powerful Words. A year later, she founded Power on Heels Fund, Incorporated, a nonprofit committed to promoting social and economic mobility for women through training and empowerment initiatives. Ivette is a proud alumna of San Diego State University with a degree in communications. She's also a wife, mother of 2 daughters, and grandmother to 2 granddaughters. Today, we're thrilled to have her on the podcast to talk about empowerment, leadership, and unlocking your true potential. Please welcome in Ivette Mayo.
Welcome, artists, icons, and entrepreneurs. We're here to celebrate bold voices, shape cultures, senses, and legacy. Today, we are honored to have a true Latina trailblazer, Ivette Mayo. She is an award-winning entrepreneur, a global speaker, and an author who has empowered thousands of people. As the founder of Yo Soy I Am LLC and Power on Heels Fund Incorporated, Ivette has her life to uplift women, especially Latinas, through leadership, advocacy, and unapologetic confidence. Her journey from corporate boardrooms to global stages is proof that when a Latina leads with purpose, she changes the world. On behalf of myself, I am Lulu Benavidez, the co-host, and my sidekick, Krokonis Hanson. We welcome you to Artists, Icons, and Entrepreneurs. Yvette!
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Sue and Lulu, and thank you for that introduction. I'm super excited to be here, and hello to everyone who's tuning in. I'm so excited. So let's get started.
Okay.
Yes, Yvette, I especially want to know about everything about you. You were in the global airline industry for 27 years. And I'm very curious as to how that experience in the early days helped shape the leader that you've become today.
Well, you know, one of the things, and thank you for that question. I think one of the things it takes me back to that young Yvette, that little girl who wasn't sure what the world had to offer. Mm-hmm. I remember writing in my journal or this book that I used to keep that when I graduated from high school, there was 3 things I wanted to do. I wanted to vote, drive, and get a passport. And those were 3 clear goals. Not so much, but all of those things represented freedom, or the opportunity to leave where I was and move into communities that I wasn't familiar with. I know as a young person, driving doesn't seem like, it's a big deal to be able to drive. But for me, it was just, we take it for granted. We were in this isolated community, and there's towns and communities around us that we didn't even explore or go into. So those things represented freedom to me. And I've always been a history buff, so I've always been in tune to things that are happening in the world, historical places, or just world history and then world events. So for me, the passport presented even more freedom to be able to explore that curiosity of those other spaces.
Yeah.
So I graduated, went to college and did all that. And, ironically enough, it was the idea of working for an airline. I had moved to Texas, and then I was separated from my family. And so the job at first became a necessity. It was that connection between myself and my family in another state. But then it was back to that young girl dream of being able to travel and explore. So what it did, it really fostered something important in me to be able to do what I wanted to do, something that meant something to me, to see the world. So in the years that I had a chance to work at Continental Airlines, one of the things that I did get to do was see the world. So I've flown over the North Pole. I have traveled throughout Europe. I've gone to Hong Kong and Japan. I've been to Hawaii countless times. I've traveled across the United States. I've seen the Statue of David. I've stood on the I have seen the Christ statue in Brazil. So the question is what haven't I seen, right?
Yeah.
But that was something that just fostered something in me that meant, the freedom to explore, and that curious me that has been there a long time. The benefit of that is I got to work and do all of this.
Yeah.
Right? And then meet people who are in these communities that we're all intentionally working for the same goal, but we were achieving it in a different way because culture brought different perspectives and communities brought different ideas. And then we were all getting there, but getting there in a different way. And I kind of became the collector of those things, and that I was able to share at headquarters, hey, this is what they're doing in Chile, and this is what they're doing in Mexico City. And hey, have you talked to our St. Louis team? Because they're having challenges that they're having in Boston. Because I was in training and in sales and in various different areas within the company, Works became kind of a feeding frenzy for me, where I was able to find out what their challenges were. And then that helped me. And a thing that I like to call myself, one of my biggest attributes is I'm a solution-oriented person.
Yes.
I'm always looking, how do we fix that? What do we do with that? And who can help who? And so all of that just fed into my soul, into my purpose. Now, I'm going to put a pause on there, and I'm going to come back to that. And the reason is because I want to kind of share what brought me to that space. I share this a lot because it's important for us to see how military families are affected by being a military family. So if you're a military family or a vet, thank you for your service, not only as a family member, but supporting people in our armed services. So my father's in the U.S. Navy. I was born in Puerto Rico. And when I was 6 years old, we left the island and we moved stateside for my dad's orders. We traveled all over the country, but that first move was to the Mecca of all immigration, Norfolk, Virginia, right? Had it figured out, right? It was 1968, the United States. So you can imagine what was happening socially in the community. And yes, we were not allowed to go to this military school on the base. My brother and I were forced to go to a segregated all-black school off base. And from that move to the time we settled finally in San Diego, California in the 7th grade, my brother and I went to 13 different schools.
Wow.
We moved a lot. And the reason I share that with you is because each time we moved, there was a need for assimilation and acculturation to each of these communities, because everybody does everything different.
Yeah.
And we, being a Puerto Rican family, there was a lot of times we couldn't find the things that we commonly ate. So we had to constantly readapt and figure things out. And so we managed through all that. But that constant change, I think, created that idea for freedom and curiosity in me that still kind of really deeply still embedded in me. And then from 7th grade, even though we were in San Diego, to 12th grade, we moved 5 more times.
Wow.
You see? And so we constantly were moving. And even if we were moving to a different part of the base or the housing installation, it was still a move. It was a new next door neighbor. It was a new way to get home. It was a new set of friends, because our friends may have been 5 blocks versus 10 blocks away. So the reason I state that is because change is something that I am comfortable with. I feel that change is a natural state, that we're constantly evolving into something new. And then where that leads me to is that when I got into the airline industry, I did banking before that and did other types of, other industries before I came to Continental. But it was there where I realized that change was a constant. It was a 24-hour operation. There were, before, when people made a reservation and flew on the plane, 20 people touched their reservation or their money or their bags, and there was something always going on. There was always a certain dynamic, and that intrigued me. And it was a great place to learn. I learned so much. But it wasn't until I got involved in the professional development. I was in training. I got to train not only our domestic and international teams in sales and marketing globally, but I also was responsible for our partners.
Yeah.
So I was able to bring their cultural components into our business so that way we can create a happy medium. And I always found myself to be that conduit of change between communities. And I don't have a problem connecting people and putting the right people with the right solution, because that's just how I'm wired. Now, it can be unnerving for some people. They call me high energy and hyper, all kinds of other names. But it's just because my brain is always working and finding that solution.
Yeah.
So for me, being in that, working for Continental Airlines was important to me because, to be honest with you, if you were to cut my wrist, little blue airplanes would fly out. It was just embedded in me. But it just gave me something where the work that I did, I felt had purpose. I really got to be happy with the things that I was doing. So to me, I've been able to kind of catapult from that in my personal career.
Wow. Well, Ivette, you're such a great inspiration to all of us. And can you tell the audience, when you first started Your Soy, I Am LC, can you tell the audience a little bit more about that particular business that you started way back when? God, because I've known you forever.
Oh my God. So that business started in 2004. Just let you know, it's been that long since I left corporate America and started my own business. So if you are an entrepreneur, and you were either forced into that role or migrated into that role, however reason you got there, I want to just kind of come back to the idea of how you felt, feeling. What happened or what was going on in your world at the time that made you either leave and start this company or move into that space of entrepreneurship and explore it, or were you forced into it? The reason I say that is because I left corporate America because I was not happy. I did a lot of work. I met my goals. I was very productive. The organization had changed a lot. Leadership had changed a lot. The direction of the company had changed. And it no longer was in alignment with me, meaning that the idea of change and being a conduit between communities and all of that, a lot of that started to deteriorate away. And one of the biggest challenges is how I felt. So my husband at the time we met and married at Continental, and he was over the call center. So he was given a call center in Florida. So we decided that our family was going to stay together. We weren't going to do him in Florida, me in Texas. So I used that opportunity to leave and start Yo Soy I Am. Now, Yo Soy I Am LLC, it's about helping teams understand the cultural aspects of the intention of it was the cultural aspects of business. Companies create great marketing strategies and working strategies to develop their teams, or maybe even, or most importantly, to generate revenue. They'll understand how culture impacts all those strategies. Are they serving a Hispanic community? Is the growth in one community African American or aging? Were they factoring cultural aspects into strategy to make sure that they were adapting? Since I did that internally, I decided that as a consultant and as a trainer and a facilitator, that I was always going to bring culture into the company or the conversation, the learning, the speech on stage. It was always about how culture impacts growth. So anyway, Power on Heels, or Yo Soy I Am, became that company, and I had an opportunity to, that intrigued people. And in Florida, we were in Tampa, Florida. Hey, Tampa was a great place that was open to the conversation. And within short order, I was working with various different corporations. I was being invited to speak to different organizations. Chase was a great partner. State Farm was a great partner. And then I even got appointed to the mayor's first Multicultural Business Development Council. And I was the first person appointed to that first year of that council. And because they saw the change and the evolution of business in the community. And I won Woman of the Year, one of the top 40 Women of the Year in business, my first year in business. So you could see the conversation just really motivated people. Since then, I've worked with national organizations on how leadership and sales and marketing and teams are impacted by culture, external factors as well as internal factors. And so that led my work to work with Fortune 100, 500 companies, national organizations, even been able to help even develop training for these organizations, because this training is critical to the growth of future leaders, understanding cultures and communities. So I took what was happening at Continental Airlines that gave me joy and community and connection and brought it into what I feel was a missing element in today's workplace. So that's how Yo Soy I Am, and continues to grow, because we continue to be that cultural conduit and learning between leadership and teams and sales and clients and frontline impact. So that is Yo Soy I Am.
And you also have, do you still have those cards that you developed?
Yes. So I created a line of bilingual stationery, and the question is called Yo Soy Expressions, and yes, it still exists. I had the opportunity of getting it in store shelves with different companies such as Walgreens. And then I had a chance to meet with Walmart, who connected me to Hallmark, who connected me to a company that develops a product in China. And back in 2011, 2012, it's been 13 years now, I licensed the product to a company that produces it. They distribute it globally. I just have to provide updated designs for them. And then they distribute it, and then I'm on the royalty end of it now. But it was a way of being able to get the product mass produced and then get it out there. There is a website that you can still purchase the product here in the U.S., and that's that's still out there. But it is something that is part of, as a entrepreneur, we have multiple revenue streams. So we talked about the Yo Soy I Am, a consulting firm, my speaking, and then the other revenue stream is my cards. Yeah. And who knew, right?
Yeah.
That a muchas gracias card and let's do amiga time and those little cards would have this type of longevity, but also another way of connecting culture to people.
Yeah, that's awesome. Awesome. One of the other things that I was told by Lulu about you is that you hold over 15 professional training master certifications. So that's unbelievable. Unbelievable. And it makes me wonder, you've obviously been a lifelong learner. How has this continuation of learning played a role in your success today as an entrepreneur?
I think one of the things that you said is an avid learner. My grandmother, a very simple woman from simple means, 5th grade education, she used to always say to me, if you're learning, you're living. The day that you stop learning something is the day that you close your eyes. You can always learn and relearn something. I think one of the things that we as a society, we hear it now is, I wish things were different. I wish we would go back to the way things used to be, because we were happier then, we were better then. Well, that sounds great, but it's not real. It's not realistic. We're moving and evolving in a whole different space. I mean, think about our telephone. I still remember that phone that we used to be in the hallway with the coil bag that used to have to unwrap, untangle to use, and that you could have, in order to have a private call, you had to find a closet and hope or let everybody hear what you were saying. Yeah. But now a phone anywhere. My friend's in Europe, and she easily called me from Europe without having to dial 1 the other day. So we've all evolved, and with change comes the ability to accept new things. I'm 62 years old. I'll tell you my age anytime. I just won't tell you my dress size. But what's so important is I'm now taking letters and documents, and I'm running them through AI to get I'm using a portal called Canva to help create graphics that just ease. If I was different, I wouldn't touch any of those things. I wouldn't even know how to even talk about them, let alone use them. But the certifications came because I was in a space when I worked at Continental Airlines. A lot of those were in place then because these were programs we had to teach. And back in the day, when you were an expert, you were a certified expert, not announcing, I am a travel expert because you get on planes. No, you actually know how an airline is run, or you know how leadership is taught. You know, there's all these self-professed experts. Wow. And I always question people who say, oh, I have a coach. And I go, everybody says they're a coach, right? Right. But what are they coaching?
Yeah.
It's almost like everybody's a life coach. Well, like how is your life? Or you hear people who kind of say, I'm going to teach you how to make six figures. Well, show me your bank account. So for me, when I tell you I'm a leadership master trainer, or that I am a master speaker, that I've done this and I've done that, I can tell you I've done a 2-week training course where I had to intensively take the class, teach back every element of it, understand the materials, and know the concept of learning, the intention of learning in each of those modules or each of those topic matters. So I take that very personally, because when somebody says, well, how do you know? And I said, because I do know.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. And I take that personally. So over the years, 15, I started this at 35 and now I'm 62, divided out, you're like, but yeah, I'm constantly learning. My books, my stack of books behind me are about learning in leadership, in sales, and interpersonal skills, and areas that you always want to get that different perspective and bring that in, because everybody picks up something different. Everybody learns differently. And I think it's important to be that the person who is in front of the room, that I am the authoritarian of the topic. I know this topic. Right. And I want you to know that authoritarian is a bad word. Let me just take that back, but I am the expert. And there's no doubt that is in it. And then the importance of understanding that as the world change, that learning can be dated and not applicable. What's now replacing that? And what's the new version of that? And what's going to take that to the next level? So I'm always re-upping my skill sets.
And, those words are so powerful because you constantly have to be learning. Talked about AI, you talked about Canva. I read somewhere, I don't know where, if you do not know AI, then you're going to fall by the wayside. You learn it. Yeah. If you don't know Canva, if you're doing graphic designs or videos or for social media, if you don't try to learn something, then you fall by the wayside. Right. It's just what it is. So we constantly have to be learning and find out what it is you have to learn in order to teach it.
Well, and keep in mind, though, is that, and if you don't learn it, you still have to know enough about it where you can ask questions. Because think about let's use a very important tool and application that business owners use, which is QuickBooks. Okay, so now you are going into accounting. I'm not an accountant by trade. I hate accounting. Can I just say I hate accounting? Me and accounting can't be in the same room very long. Right. But I understand that both in my business and in my nonprofit world, we have to have somebody do our books. But I just can't be closed and not have an idea how to log in. What kind of reports can I ask? What am I looking at? What are they giving me, and how do I know? So they can give you an explanation, but I still have to know.
Exactly.
And so it may not be for you to learn it, for you to master it, but you need to know enough about it where you know how it could benefit you. And so here you are, you have a real need. You don't realize that there is something out there that can help you. And if you can't do it, you have to find somebody who can help you do it. Right? So I think that learning is very critical at any state. And that happens a lot with, for instance, some of my coaching clients, because yes, I am a coach, my coaching clients who are leaving the workspace and moving into entrepreneurship. One of the biggest transitions is that they know what they know. Now they have to go into marketing and selling and accounting and the various different other layers of their business. Yeah, you're an expert in finance and you're an expert in whatever the case whatever field you had in IT or whatever in your corporate career. But now how do you translate that into a business? Somebody still has to turn on the computer, reach out to clients, sell the products. What are features and benefits? How do you market? What is your brand? What does your brand stand for? What do you tell people? How's your money coming in? What are your terms? You don't know those things. You need to learn those things. Right. So learning is ongoing. And if you choose to not learn, then
it's time to close your eyes.
Exactly.
Which leads me to this question. You developed a nonprofit organization called Power on Wheels Fund. Power on Wheels Funds. And it has impacted so many lives out there. Can you tell us more about it?
Oh my
And
God.
why did you choose to have a nonprofit organization?
Well, it's a real passion project. Has real purpose, real intention in my heart. So if I was to find myself in one word, that would be teacher. I teach. My mantra and my personal mantra is I want to leave people different than I found them. So if I've said something thus far that sparked a little charge or a little emotion in you, then that means that something I said has resonated and I'll do something with it. Okay. So as I was developing Yo Soy I Am and moving into all these various different corporate spaces, and I brought in culture and I brought my Latinidad into the room and my Spanglish and I found that it was the women who would stay behind the class and say, oh my God, we don't get women speakers. We don't get Latina speakers. I felt that you were speaking to me. This is the first time. And I would hear that over and over and over again. Like I was feeling a void in these spaces. Mm-hmm. And even though these wonderful companies like State Farm and Comcast, they were investing in their teams and their growth and their professional development, they didn't realize that by just having me in front of the room was also impacting the teams. Mm-hmm. So I took that, I honored that. But what I started collecting these ideas that every time I met these women, they were all in different places saying the same thing. Like they didn't feel like they were in spaces where they were learning, that learning wasn't always available to them, and that things didn't resonate with them because they were always from a man's perspective, not necessarily a woman or let alone a Latina. So and I've worked with national organizations around the country, and it always felt wonderful to be in a room where there were women just like me, that looked like me, sounded like me, in a space. The challenge that it was is that it was all in different places. It wasn't where I was. So creating Power on Heels Fund is a way we've created a training platform, a learning platform where we help people pivot. Most importantly, women, because to be honest with you, women need to become their biggest advocate in today's marketplace. Mm-hmm. More than ever, our existence is being challenged. Mm-hmm. What we do and our power. And power is a big word for me because I felt that in all these spaces, women were just giving away their power. They were just doing it because they could, but they weren't gaining things from it. So just to share with you, I do not believe that it is just a coincidence that even women are the largest demographic in today's workforce. There's more women in the workforce, but there's also not a lot of women leaders. Now, we can believe and know that structural biases and historical biases and ideologies have kept women from being in those roles because private business and corporate America has not always embraced women in leadership, but there's a mind shift that needs to take place. Women don't always see themselves as leaders. Mm-hmm. So it's not a disconnect that for me, that women, there's a leadership gap among women and women of color, Black, Asian American, and especially Latinas. Mm-hmm. Because we don't always see ourselves as leaders. Mm-hmm. So Power on Heels is a training platform. We work on training skills or professional development around emotional intelligence, building that confident woman. We also talk about leadership and adapting a personal leadership philosophy for yourself and your career, but also financial mastery, because on top of the fact that there's a leadership gap, there's a pay gender gap as well. And how do we bring awareness to that? And how do we create self-advocacy for that? So Power on Heels has been around. This is our 7th year going into 2025. And we've been able to have over 4,000 women either sit in one of our seats or through one of our virtual seminars. And then on top of that, we give scholarships away. And when we hear scholarships, we always think of the student who we want to help and elevate through their educational journey. But we give student and professional scholarships. We want that woman who's in that space, who's discovered that she can take a training class, that an extra certification that would help her get to that next role of leadership, but also increase her earnings. Entrepreneur who's investing all their money into their business and to their teams and products, but not investing in themselves. Mm-hmm. So the professional scholarships are set up so that way all of these groups of women can continue their career path to achieve their purpose, but also gain in their own personal wealth.
Well, you also wrote a book, a 30-day guide
Which I have.
to finding your power, which just fits in beautifully with everything that you've just talked about. So I am kind of interested in, how you want the reader to feel after they've read your book. Needs does your book sort of add to their repertoire?
Well, let me you were so good to ask me to share a little bit about myself. And I always feel like everything that I've created has started from something that I've experienced personally and how it made me feel. And then what did I do about it? Because that's just me. What am I going to do about it? And believe me, I'm going to tell you what I think you need to do about it too. That's just me, all right? So family don't understand that I'm a solution-oriented person. A lot of them call me bossy, but the reason I wanted to say that is because culturally, I was a dutiful daughter. I listened to my parents. I did what they asked me to do. We know what that means in our own community, in our own family. I got married. I became a dutiful wife, right? And I did my husband's career, my first husband. His career was our lives. And everything had to be around what he wanted. And that's how I got to Texas. Texas was not on my map. But I've been here since 1984 and it's home. But all of these things came with duty, any responsibilities to those roles that I was playing as daughter, as wife, and as employee. Big part. Until I was about 35 years old, been married and went through a divorce that changed my life, both emotionally and mentally and in so many different ways. But one of the things that I had to stop and think is who am I? My purpose, what am I? And I dealt with a lot of mental and verbal abuse from a lot of different people. And my confidence was rocked because there were things I was believing of myself that others put on me. They weren't mine. It's what their perception of me was or where they felt I needed to be. So they spoke that to me. So those things, those descriptions of me and those ideas of me created beliefs in me that were disruptive. And even though I am this high energy, vivacious, solution-oriented person, I was not at my best. And one of the things I had read was a book about affirmations and the importance of the word I am. And those are the two most powerful words a person can speak. And I took back what I read in that book, and I started doing something then that I still do, and the book is related to, is me affirming me. It's what I was saying to myself, what I wanted my self-truth to be, not what someone said about me that I believed, right? If somebody says, oh, you're just not smart enough to handle that, it's like, I believe I'm smart enough, but how many times do we take what they say to our truth and we accept it and we move away? Somebody says, oh, you're just not good enough for that. You're trying too hard. No, my belief says I can do it. So it's giving people the permission, or I was giving myself the permission to override all those beliefs and creating a new belief system for me. So it was I affirming I. So the book is about you walking yourself through a 30-day journey of lifting up your power, where you are defining who you are on your terms. So it's not just simply saying, I am worthy, but creating a statement on your belief on why you believe you are worthy. So just saying I am worthy is not enough. I am worthy because I've worked hard. I've done everything that I was supposed to do to get here. I am worthy of receiving this because I've done the work and I believe I can do this. And no one's giving this to me. I am burning it. I am worthy. Something as simple as that to reinforce the language. So through that divorce and through that time, I created that process for myself. And the book is walking you through that story and walking you through that process of self-affirmation, which I call I-affirmation. I affirm I. So if you are someone who just believes in the power of words, here's your ability to reinforce yourself with your own words and becoming even more powerful. It has nothing to do with those external people that surround us. It's about what you want and deserve and need to believe about yourself.
So, Yvette, you work with Fortune 500 giants like State Farm and Comcast. What is one thing that stands out mostly in your life working for these companies?
Well, I think I mentioned it a little while ago that I felt that when I worked with them, I was always love working with partners and communities that invest in their employees. A lot of times when I came in, I was doing an employee event where I got to talk about culture and perspective and how it affects the business model, and talk to their leadership teams, how culture is impactful. So I was always happy when I get to work in these environments with these amazing companies like State Farm, as well as Comcast, is how much they invest in their people. Not everybody does that. So there are two companies that stand out for me. There's several others, but I use them as an example because I've worked with them in different projects, but each time it was the internal customer, not the external customer that we were dealing with.
Well, Yvette, you've done so much, and you've also served as a public diplomat in the U.S. State Department. Oh my gosh. Tell us a little bit about what that role meant to you personally and professionally. I feel like you should be 90 years old. You have accomplished so much.
Well, on those many journeys, somewhere I found the fountain of...
Send me that link.
No, right? I think, first of all, the reason... I don't know how I even got nominated for that program. I know that I knew some other people who had participated in previous years. The year that I did it was the second year it was in place. Okay. So this went in place in the Obama administration when Kerry created this office within the diplomatic corps when he got his role of Secretary of State. And then in the second administration, it was Hillary Clinton, and this continued. And so I was in the second cohort. I was here and the phone rang and it said Secret Service. They found me. They caught me. And so the lady proceeded to tell me the process and what I needed to do. I had to agree to do a background check and all of that. And I was nominated because at the time I had Yo Soy I Am in my cards. I had been to several different events with the Secretary of Labor in Washington and involved in different groups. And then my name came up as a nominee for this global initiative. The global initiative was monies that were being preserved for training and programs to help women in third world countries develop skills, entrepreneurship, leadership, health and wellness. And I was asked to lead initiatives in the entrepreneurship as well in the leadership area. There was trainings that they had. There were certain things that they wanted to make sure that we followed, but we got to bring our own dynamic experiences to the table. The thing is that they worked in conjunction with other countries. So when a country in Africa or Europe or Asia had an initiative for women, they went to this particular group in Washington and say, we have this initiative and we like to hold it. And then we would be deployed to one of those countries to share our skill sets. And the previous group under the Kerry administration and our group was group 1 and 2. And there was about maybe 25 of us in total that at any given time we could be called away to do one of these initiatives.
How exciting.
So it was wonderful because you got to meet other amazing leaders from our country, and we had to go through various different trainings and things like that in order to be ready. The sad thing about it is that we couldn't publicly tell people that we were diplomats because that was our title, right? Because of the diplomatic corps that we would be representing within the State Department, because they were concerned about security reasons. Sure. If somebody saw the word diplomat, then you become a risk and things like that. So as a public figure and doing things, saying that was something. So it was something that was kept low key, but it was such a wonderful initiative personally. I think the saddest part about that is even though I was ready to be deployed, I never got deployed. One of these places to do the initiative, but I was invited to meet with a group of women that were from Russia, Ukraine. It was Bosnia. It was like 6 different countries, and they were all working on entrepreneurship portals for women in their countries and help women become better entrepreneurs. And it was more of a conference room where we got to mastermind, where we got to sit and chat and discuss those things. It wasn't a learning opportunity, it was a sharing opportunity. But it was just a great opportunity that I was in a room full of women who were trying to uplift women in another part of the world, and I was part of the conversation. So those were some of the wonderful things that came from that.
So, Yvette, you have received so many accolades in your lifetime, haven't you? How do you stay grounded?
I have to tell you, that is where I lose it. I don't handle that kind of stuff real well. When somebody says, I want to nominate you, and, you know, I don't even know if I do well on the interviews. I just you know, it's just unnerving, you know, for me. I love what I do. I'll do it if they pay me, but you will, right? But it's just something that I love doing. And there's still a sense of uncomfortableness when you are invited. So I am humbled. I appreciate all these acknowledgments, not only for the work that we do, but the people that we help. But I still, as you can see, I'm rambling now. I still don't feel comfortable. And I have lots of them. I just, there are people who know me and have no idea, you know, that a national magazine named me Latina, you know, business entrepreneur of the year. Right? You know, this is not a small magazine, a big magazine. You know, that I've been featured in so many different, you know, media platforms. I've worked with, you know, I've had the opportunity of interviewing amazing people, being on stage with amazing people. And some people always still to this day go, I didn't know that about you. You won that. I'm like, yeah. That's not how I define myself. Fortunately, I'm a little critical because I also find that I get a little nauseated with all these people who won all these awards, and the question is, what do you do? Yeah, you know. So I'm glad that you get them, but you know, I don't want anybody to ever go, oh, her again. Yeah. You know, I'm more focused on the work and the outcomes than I am the awards. I hope that I didn't offend anybody with that out there, because if you're an award seeker, that's great for your resume. But to be honest with you, at the end of the day, you still have to substantiate it. You got to back it up. You know?
That's so true. You know, and we've had so many different guests on our podcast, and they all say the same thing. They love what they do. Yeah. If you love what you do, then all this other stuff comes along, which is great. It pats you on the back. But the bottom line, you love what you do, and it shows it. It really does. Again, those awards are wonderful when an organization says, we would love to honor you, and there's a check that goes with it. Organization. That's wonderful. I appreciate that. There's only been a few things that I personally wanted to be nominated and had asked to be nominated, because I felt those honors would really kind of anchor me in a certain community or had a real purpose and how it's perceived, right? But to be honest with you, I am the person who's going to tell you, please do not call me and nominate me for something that I'm required to buy a $7,000 table.
Yeah. Love that. Love that. Love that.
Don't.
And now we're talking real, aren't we, girlfriend? That's how that works.
Yes.
Oh, God.
I am not that one.
Yeah. Well, you've got one of the things that we've heard from our listeners is they love hearing about entrepreneurs and what they are doing and how they are doing it. But they really love sort of lifting up the curtain and putting the spotlight on the person for little nuggets of personal information. So we have this little game we play. We call it Rapid Fire. And on Rapid Fire, I'd like to ask you 5 questions. It's a little bit more personal, and get your response. Just kind of quickly, the first thing that comes into your head. So are you willing to play our game?
I'm ready. I'm ready.
Here we go. If you were doing this, what career would you be in? So if you weren't doing what you're doing now, what career would you be in?
I know this sounds completely from left field, but I would love to paint. I would love to have canvas and paint and be somewhere and just paint.
Yeah.
It was something I did as a teenager, and it was just one of those things of being able to take something that's blank and turn it into something. So that's what I would do. I would paint.
Yeah, that's your left brain kicking in. If your life had a theme song, what would be playing every time you walked into a room?
Well, it's kind of funny how things are grounded, but I love this song because when I hear it, it energizes me. There is a song by McFadden and Whitehead called "Ain't No Stopping Us Now."
Yeah, yes, yeah.
When I hear it, not only do I want to dance, it's just like, oops, it's just and it's like, I want to hear that song every day.
Yeah, that's a good one. It's better than "She's a Bad Mama Jamma." You know what I mean? I like yours better. What is one thing you do that your family totally teases you about?
Well, I mentioned that little solution-oriented thing that I'm always good about telling people that I found a way for them to fix their problem.
Perhaps a problem they didn't even know they had.
The way I see it is, I think that's something that will come up, that, I am very solution-oriented.
Yeah. Okay, so maybe this ties in, maybe it doesn't, but who was your childhood role model?
It always comes back to somebody early in those ages as, a family member. So in my case was my grandmother. I was kind of sandwiched between cousins. So there was a group that were in school and another group that were older, and I was by myself. So I got to spend a lot of time with her by myself. And I find out now as I share stories and memories with my cousins that they did not have that same memory. But she was very solution-oriented like me. She didn't ask for permission. If she saw something that had to be done, she'd do it. And then if she said, hey, it had to be done. And she was non-apologetic about anything. And again, we put people in places of power because they have authority, they have the education, the background, the title, the parking space, the corner office. So we put people in places, the title of leadership and high levels. But this was a very simple woman, humble beginning, and then a working woman until had 7 children, a 5th grade education, and smartest woman I ever knew. And if there was a problem, she fixed it. If money had to be made, she figured out how to make money. She always was finding a way to fix it. We should never settle for just whatever it is. And I got to witness that. And then with her, she used to say to me every day, like, Yvette, what are you going to be when you grow up? And I would say, every day I would say something different. I was 4 years old. What did I know? I'm going to be a singer. I'm going to dance. I'm going to be a doctor. And every day she would say to me, you can be anything, to the moon, hasta la luna. So little did I know that she was setting the groundwork and demonstrating leadership, being unapologetic, not asking for permissions, respecting authority, but yet taking risks. And I have evolved to be that person because of her.
Yeah, that's fabulous. I have one last question.
No,
just one. What's your guilty pleasure at the end of a long work day?
Gosh, okay, I have several.
Imagine that.
It just depends on the day, right? Okay, so when I get a chance to watch television, one of my favorite shows is Judge Judy. Oh my God. Love Judge Judy. The old Judge Judy.
Yeah.
Not so much with the ponytail Judge Judy. The old Judge Judy. Okay. I love that. But what I love is I love being alone. I have learned to find myself, give myself grace. We're in noisy rooms all the time. So one of my guilty pleasures is finding a quiet space and just being quiet and still, and just kind of trying to recharge and let some of this craziness go and just kind of take a step back to breathe. And then one of the other things that I just live for is chocolate. I would poke your eye out for chocolate. I would. I mean, if it was the last piece, right? Yeah. And good chocolate, like I love it with like almonds and like toffee bits in it. Me in a Heat bar. Like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So, can you tell the audience where they can find you?
Well, you can, a couple places. You can go social media. So it's Ivette_Mayo, and Yvette with an I, because, I am special. _Mayo. You can find me on Facebook as well as Instagram and LinkedIn. So please connect. Let me know if I can help. Any questions? I love being interactive with people. My company website is yosoyIam.com. So that's YOSOYIAM.com. And there you'll find things, how I can come in and work with you, coaching, speak at one of your events, train at one of your companies. And then, of course, my nonprofit, Power on Heels, where we help, and we're committed to the social and financial mobility of women in our community. So please join us at poweronheelsfund.org. So you can see our work and the things that we do. And if you are not in Houston, that's okay, because we do a lot of our programs virtually. So you can join on one of our virtual workshops.
Great, great. Well, Ivette, thank you for gracing us with your voice, your vision, and the truth. You remind us the power lies with every Latina who dares to dream big and speak boldly, like yourself. You are truly an inspiration. On behalf of myself, artists, icons, and entrepreneurs, and my co-host, Sue Krokonis Hanson, and to our listeners, take Ivette's words and use it as a fuel. Empower, inspire, and elevate. Thank you, Ivette, for such a wonderful episode. And to our viewers, I hope you go to that episode of Ivette's and listen to it. Thank you.
See you down the road, Ivette.
Thank you.
Wow, what an episode. That wraps up another exciting edition of Artists, Icons, and Entrepreneurs. Thank you so much for joining us. We hope you're leaving inspired and ready to chase your dreams. Don't forget to follow us on social media and subscribe to our podcast so you never miss an episode over at youtube.com/artists, icons, entrepreneurs, as well as Facebook at Lulu Benavidez, on IG at Lulu Benavidez, at Evolve Hair Solutions as well. And don't forget to visit our website at lulubenavidez.com and evolvehairsolutions.com to stay updated. Until next time, keep dreaming big, creating boldly, and making your mark on the world. Thanks for listening, and take care, everyone.